Welcome back to Pallets to Pints. Today we're here at Long Beverage with my good friend Travis Hardee, who's the Director of Sales and Marketing. Travis, welcome to Pallets to Pints. Let's do a cheers.
Cheers.
And let's kick this conversation off. I want you to give a little bit of background about yourself, but how did you end up here? How did you end up in the beer beverage industry? What's a little bit of the background and how do you think about your role now, day to day?
Sure. So, not really an exciting story of how I ended up in the beer industry. There's two things, when I was in college, much like most college students, right? Money and beer, right? The two things were ticking and tying. So, I've been doing this now for almost 16 years. So, coming out of college, I got into a little bit of the banking side. That was a tough gig, and realized that I didn't want to be too tied into that. So beer was kind of the next love and passion, and as I grew up, and we all have those times we associate beer typically with, a lot of times are good times, sometimes they're sad times, memories, right? But I knew it was always occasion and always around as my family events as I grew up, and was always tied to something I wanted to be a part of. So long story short, I jumped into that about 16 years ago. Started on the sales side, like most people would be, sales and merchandising, how to route, and from there developed into space planning role, which is kind of category management of how the stores, your retailers look to the customers on a day-to-day basis. Developed that into a chain role, so started making vertical calls to chain buyers, the Circle K's of the world, so on and so forth, and then developed into a sales management role, looking after the sales team. So, lucky enough to have the opportunity to have that position here with Long Beverage. We have a great team, and it's definitely something I'm very proud of day to day, working with some incredible people.
So your role falls at the leadership position around how your company shows up at retail.
Sure.
And sales performance, execution, marketing, and all those different things. When you think about building a best-in-class sales organization, how do you think about that? How do you approach that, and what do you look for?
That's a big question, Sean. So when we take a look at, number one, it's customer service, right? Our people, when they bring customer service, they go to talk to retailers, understanding what's important to the retailer. But at the same time, we got to be understanding of what brands we have, where does it fit into the consumer, or customer, I should say, and how do we make it show up at retail? And a lot of those things can be anything from proper placement on the shelf, obviously in stock position, but also some of the POS materials we have available to the consumer to be able to see at retail. We train our people quite frequently on priorities and managing those priorities when we take a look at a store. When we come to look at our suppliers, for instance, we have 40 suppliers. We're going to lead with our top 4 suppliers who represent a big chunk of our business, and those typically are where our priorities lie, because those are the largest brands in the business. Mm-hmm. And then that's what we teach our sales team when we go out and talk business. Hey, this represents X share of what your consumers are looking for. This is where you should probably be on the shelf, or what you should be showing off to your consumers when they walk through your door.
Even though I lead now in a world which is operationally focused, right? Mm-hmm. Transforming how beer distributors, beverage distributors go to market from an operational perspective to drive those efficiencies. But I've always had this deep passion for the sales side, right? Like I've thrown cases, I've sold cases.
Side, right?
I know, right? So it involves personalities, right? Having a little bit of fun. I think one thing that brings me really close to home in the industry is the social side of it, right?
Sure.
Like there's nothing better than
Sure.
having conversations over a beer,
yeah.
chatting through those kinds of things and all that good stuff. So the retailer. So speak a little bit on behalf of the retailer. When Long Beverage is not in the room, what do you want a retailer to say about Long Beverage as a partner?
We're reliable. We're a best-in-class customer service. They're our go-to partner when we need them to show up. And that's, at the end of the day, we're all trying to accomplish the same goal. When we're talking about our retailer partners, whether it's on-premise, large format, small format, grocery or C-stores, we don't sell empty shelves. We don't sell air. What we sell is like I talked about, a memory, but it's a commodity nonetheless. We want to make sure that's readily available for our retailer partners, for their consumers when they walk through the door. So reliability is one thing I want the retailer partners to, when they think of Long Beverage, These guys are going to be there. They're going to show up day in and day out, and they're going to deliver world-class service. And that's ultimately what we want to have with our retailers. And obviously, there's a lot that goes into that with relationships and relationship building and trust and having the right mix in conversations.
I think one of the things, even though we, like from a technology standpoint at Rehrig Pacific, we stay very centralized in how we drive efficiencies within the four walls of these building, in this building. But from an end-to-end solution, there's a whole phase of delivery outside and the experience that the customer has. And there's all this technology that can help augment and create better experiences. For your sales team, what are some types of technology that you've looked at more recently or that you have implemented into the sales process or that interaction with the retailer?
Yeah, and it's evolving. It's actually, since my time in the industry for 16 years, it has come from basically nothing, right, to where we're at today, where we can suggest specific SKUs for specific accounts based on surrounding retailers. So currently we have that ability, and that's something we actively use, where it's artificial intelligence. And we can suggest orders to our sales team based on surrounding territories and or trends. We can also put in things like events. If there's a big football game on campus and we understand there's going to be a big crowd for that, we can also put that event in there, and it will take that into account when our salesman walks into a store that might be impacted. With what we've got going, it's really the tip of the iceberg, to be honest with you, Sean. Like you flash 4 or 5 years from now, it's going to be unbelievable the capabilities that we have for our salesmen to really take the time and sell against what they know, and it's going to be fact-based, just based on what we've learned and all this technology, and be able to capture the data and actually read it and understand it. We've been capturing data for decades, years, centuries. The hard part and the best part about it now is that we're actually starting to use and implement those reports on a live feed. Mix that with what Dylan and the team, warehouse team, has put into play with accuracy and some of the efficiencies we've driven up and down these aisles. That has helped tremendously from a retail perspective and what we can do to support that as far as speed and efficiency and actually maximizing our time at retail to talk about, hey, Sean, what's important to you? Mr. Retailer, what's coming up, what's important, what are we going to do for this upcoming event, and here's what's new. Those conversations become a little bit more higher in volume and deeper and more complex, which is nice.
So let's go to technology a little bit more as it relates to your team's interaction with the retailer. What sort of technologies have you been looking at, have you implemented, and what is working so far as you look to tackle challenges from the retailer interaction with your team?
Like I mentioned, we have the capabilities now, right, to take into account what's happening in surrounding retailers or surrounding environment of the retailer that are going to give suggested products, suggested orders for our salesmen. And that's a time efficiency thing, right? Ultimately, it's going to grow case sales, but more importantly, Sean, it frees that salesman up to sell, right? And have those conversations and develop that relationship. That's the ideal. Like, we don't ever want to replace that. And a lot of that is typically on the small format and on-premise side, right? Where it's a little bit more social. Large format and grocery, we're doing a few things in regards to, I mentioned earlier that we don't sell air, right? The retailer doesn't sell air. Ultimately, I've not seen a retailer sell a shelf at grocery ever. So our job ultimately is to move, product A to position B. Yep. At the end of the day. Right? If I don't get that product there, you're not having a good time on Friday night, and you're buying something else that you probably don't like to drink. So, with all that being said, one of the challenges we have is really the industry in general. It's from where it was 20 years ago. The SKU count has more than tripled. So you look at our building at any given time. There's north of 1,300 SKUs. Well, those SKUs go somewhere. They're in a grocery store typically, right? Or we could have north of 350, 400 SKUs. That's a lot. That's a lot for one individual to manage. So what we're doing with some of the technology that we have in play right now is being able to capture live out of stocks. What does that mean? So we have a merch team, much like a lot of wholesalers across the nation do. They merchandise bulks, pulls, what have you. It's one of their job job requirements as they walk in and out of stores is to capture out of stocks that day. What that information, how it's captured, it is put in our system. Then it takes a look at any upcoming orders from AI or any orders we have in the system, and it'll make sure that that case is available on next set delivery. If it's not, it'll make sure that product is on the next delivery. So it'll automatically populate that live out of stock. We have the ability to put in things like an ad feature, put in things like a particular program that we want to push, to where we can set par levels, and if we miss it on the sales side, it will auto-populate to make sure we get it delivered on the next delivery. So, those are just two examples of how we're using technology and the things that are now readily available to us. As I mentioned, we can report each other to death, right?
Yeah.
All those numbers just turn out to be numbers unless you're using them. So we're at a stage now to where, and I really think we're still in the infancy of it, how you understand the material, understand the reporting, and more importantly, how you implement it is where the efficiency is going to come from on the sales side. Obviously, Dylan and team in the warehouse is already on that part now where they're seeing all the benefits from the efficiency from the reporting. Sales, it's going to come. You can already see it. But again, it's going to take a couple of years for our retailer partners also to jump on board from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, it's something I live by is insights without action is just overhead, right? And
100%.
you said it, like
100%.
You could take all this information, but if you don't put action to it, it's worthless, right? One thing that you're fully aware of cross-functionally here at Long Beverage is the investment operationally that is being made in making sure that outbound orders are as accurate as possible. Right. When order accuracy improves and upon delivery, there are less disputes, less invoice adjustments, less chaos going on in general. How does that impact the relationship that you all have with your retailers? And are they starting to notice that now that we're 8 or 9 months in terms of what that looks like? And is that strengthening the bond that you guys have in the market?
It's a much bigger impact than you can even tell on paper, to be quite frank with you. Accuracy at backdoor, there's nothing. If you haven't been in a back room at 5 a.m., 4:30 in the morning when that order gets checked in and the order is wrong, it creates disruption. And what eventually it does is it creates, a lack of trust. So, the accuracy coming out of our building right now builds trust, builds relationships. You asked me earlier, said, what does Long Beverage want to be known for, right? When the retailer's talking and we're not in the room. And I said reliability. That's a part of it. So those conversations when our salesmen show up and that order's been checked in already, it was a speedy order, it was accurate, the receiver's happy, the manager's happy. From a sales side, our conversation's a lot easier because we know that everything we ordered was appropriately picked and it's there on time and it's obviously received in and we have no disputes.
One thing that has driven me nuts over the year, whether I was on the receiving end of the phone call or I was the one making the phone call, was where I ordered that case, it's in stock. My driver just called me and said that they shorted it off the invoice because it wasn't on the pallet, right? So what are your sales team members saying about the fact that orders seem to be doing quite a bit better? That's not only less chaos, that's improved revenue, right? From your perspective, what is that value, that tangible value that you're feeling and seeing?
I'd say it's less tangible, more intangible, quite honestly. Because the salesman, time's a tough thing to track, but he's not tied up now, fighting for that conversation of, hey, well, how do I get that additional 3 cases that was mispicked or what have you? That's not a conversation anymore. And more importantly, sales guys are emotional. I'm a sales guy. We're 70-30 emotional.
Freaking hot shot. I don't want to take that out, right?
Man. So that whole thing, the attitude, the cultural attitude is great because, hey, we know what we deliver or what we sell is going to be right. It's going to be accurate. So the confidence, just not with our retailer partners, but our sales team, to know that, hey, we're going to get it right and we're going to get it right the first time. So, there are metrics behind it, definitely more from a delivery and operation side. Sales side, it's definitely the relationship building and the trust at the back door.
Looking ahead a little bit, right? I'm focused on commercializing technology and and bringing new things to the table. So give me some ideas here. What are you focused on moving into 2026 and beyond from a sales capabilities perspective? What challenges are you looking to tackle this year and beyond? And just what are your thoughts on how that starts to evolve in the future?
Yeah, I mean, 2025 was, is a little bit, I think, off plan for everybody. The beer industry, not necessarily, under attack. I don't want to say that by any means, but there's definitely some challenges. Whether it's new entries, the legal drinking age, those consumers now becoming legal. They're taking a look at alcohol and adult beverage a little bit differently than the previous consumers. So, for us, the big thing is we want to make sure that we have a leader in every single category, right? So what that means is when you take a look at imports, domestic, premium lights, they all have a share within the adult bev category, right? The challenge to our team is make sure if we have the leader in that segment, we have to showcase it. We have to show as a leader. So that's one of the things that we're making sure that our team is aware of when we show up at retail. When you show up at a bar, your favorite hangout, that leading brand needs to be available for that said category. So that's something that we've talked about with our sales team, and ultimately the retailers right now is they're focused a lot on inventory, inventory and overhead, much like retailers usually are. 25 probably put a little bit more pressure on all of us as far as your carrying overhead and current inventory at store level. So we want to make sure we're selling the efficient SKUs. When we take a look at our on-premise business, good example is on-premise. When we're looking at, we know what handles are efficient and they turn, and they're going to, deliver revenue for our retailer partners. That's what we're going to lead with. It's not so much the long tail of having those 35 tap takeovers, and that's great. That's exciting. That drums up social buzz and all your TikTok.
It's a lot of work.
TikTok and Twitter. It's a lot of work if you've been there.
Yeah.
It's more important now to have a handle that we know is going to be efficient for the retailer. The consumer knows what it is. They're familiar with it. They're going to pull it. It's going to deliver dollars for the retailer, and we're able to activate against it. That's the other piece to it. It's very hard to activate against a SKU that you carry once a year on a tap takeover for 35 tap takeovers. So,
I mean, you get a nice bump in incremental taps for a month,
exactly
right? And then it just kind of depletes back down.
That's exactly right.
Talk a little bit about like taking advantage of occasions, maybe more in the on-premise, and like targeting a brand to specific types of occasions or the types of demographics that are going to sports bars versus a Tex-Mex kind of bar or barbecue or whatever that looks like. Brands aren't necessarily 100% built in the on-premise like they used to be. They're built on the e-premise and all kinds of things. But how do you all look at occasions and targeting that as you look at building brand representation within, the on-premise, whatever that might look like?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to tie a brand, especially if you're going out the on-premise. You're going to a restaurant, right? You're there for a good time. You're typically there to spend money. you're going to spend money. Sports bars in general are, when people talk about activation, that's typically what you're talking about. It's again, we take those handles that we know to be true, the efficient handles. We know they're going to deliver revenue. They're typically your top IRI brands as well. We try to tie them to an occasion, whether it be a sports event, and how we activate looks a little bit differently depending on the brand. That can be everything from samplings to glassware to text to win for a keychain, whatever. It'd be trivia nights,
trade marketing, right?
Trivia nights, sponsored trivia nights. It all looked different, and quite honestly, it all depends on the year. We have the World Cup coming up. There are absolutely certain brands. It's the first time we've held the World Cup in
early 90s.
Oh, it was early 90s.
I think, yeah.
It was early 90s. So there's no telling the amount of business this brings to not just the restaurants, but let's talk about how it's going to impact the beer industry. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the beer industry over the next, starting in June of the World Cup and how many people that's going to bring to the on-premise world. So there's going to be a lot of new customers potentially that might be trying a Miller Lite for the first time.
Yep. Yeah.
I hope not, but
and they're coming from another country.
They've been drinking Miller Lite a long time, but
Yeah.
Potentially. So we have to be able to show up Miller Lite's best brand activation possible for those events.
fun kind of question. You all have carbonated soft drinks, soda, NAs. The portfolio keeps expanding right into cannabis, THC, all these different things. You're all over the grocery store, right? It's not just about going to the beer aisle anymore. What's most challenging to sell? Or to service or to fill shelves? I mean, I think single serve non-alcohol is a nightmare. Like it's a lot of cumbersome labor. But how does your sales team look at that?
It's a challenge. It's a challenge from a labor perspective. We are fortunate that we have such a larger book with non-alc beverages. You look at our total portfolio, a fifth of what we do is non-alc. So, you take a step back, speaking of non-alc, you look at your larger beer supplier partners right now. They're figuring out how to get into that segment, the non-alc segment. Mm-hmm. But from a challenging perspective, you hit it right on the head. You absolutely nailed it, Sean. It's the same.
I know one thing. There we go.
I tell you what, that was perfect. It's the non-alc single serve, right? Mm-hmm. Because those touch points are in 5 coolers in the front. It's in the deli cooler. It's down 2 different aisles.
Grab and go.
It's an end cap. So those are labors. Like it's very time consuming. But at the same time, when beer in total alcohol is dipping below 50% of total adult beverage, that is a beautiful thing that we are very fortunate to have in our book. CSDs and energy drinks, things that are on the uptick. So the sales team doesn't see it necessarily as a cumbersome task. Yeah, it laborious, sure. Mm-hmm. But we also understand, and this goes back to some of our training, that's also where we need to focus energy and effort, because this is driving new consumers. This is a part of our book and your book on a route that is driving additional dollars for you. Mm-hmm. So, those are conversations that we have.
Oh, that's awesome. To sort of tie a bow on this, let's think about winning in 2026 and beyond. You've touched on this a little bit, but what does winning look like over this next year? What does your team need to accomplish, and what separates a good distributor from a great distributor?
How much time we got?
Go for it.
Again, I talked about the beer industry. I think is going to rebound. Quite honestly, I don't think it's going to be astronomical. And by the way, nobody put bets on that. Don't go to Vegas and put down a ton of money that Travis said the beer industry is going to be up. However, traditionally you look at we're talking just beer, not our non-alc right now. We have the right brands, Sean. We have great partners in the constellations, Molson Coors, Mark Anthony's of the world that have a lot of smart people that are a lot smarter than me. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the economy, right? But one thing that we are very confident of is people still want to make memories, still want to get together. We are social human beings, like we're social animals. And a lot of times beer is a part of that. So, I talked about execution, showing up and making sure we have the right brand available, especially if it's a leader in every single one of those categories. So that's a big part of it. Talked a little bit about the out-of-stock piece. Right. The out of stocks, we have the capabilities now to monitor what that looks like live time inside the store. So we're able to see, hey, Sean's store, Sean's route, he's struggling a little bit with his out of stocks, and that might be outside factors. We don't know, right? It can be
could be supply chain, right?
It could be supply chain, but something we can actually activate on or we can follow up on. Yeah, I mean, so that is all things that we're paying attention to. 2026 in general, I think is going to, when we take a look at the sales team, we've got to sell the entire book. We've had some great partners come in our building the next year, and the last year, I should say. We talked about the beverage side of the business. That's only going to continue to grow. Yeah. So, how do we continue to get into the retailers that maybe don't currently carry alcohol? Because there's a license involved with that, right? How do we reach parts of the market that maybe we're not currently in? So those are challenges that we I was
just going to ask about like emerging non-traditional markets. I know there's brands that are selling in AutoZone, correct? Right? They're in the grab and go cooler or the barber shop. Correct. So are those all things that you all think about?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And there's obviously a break even to that, right? But at the same time, we want to make sure our brands are readily available. in the corners of the market. So we know where those accounts are at. Some of them, you know, there might be accounts out there we don't know, but we drive past them every day. Our trucks drive past them, our sales drive past them. You know, those are the types of things that we're going to try to dial in on in 2026 to find those incremental sales and incremental customers so they can be a part of the Long Beverage partnership as well. And we'd love to have them. So that'll be a challenge for us going into 2026. We want to continue operationally. You know, one thing we haven't talked about, we want to continue to focus on, we have operational efficiencies in the market as well. So when you're looking at Dillon's World, for instance, you know, we have a layer picker in our market or in our warehouse. So we take a look at our top 15 SKUs. We challenge our sales team to make it easy on these guys. These guys do a hell of a job picking accuracy. Incredible, 99+%. Like I said, that builds trust. At the same time, let's save them a little back labor. We encourage our guys with our top 10, top 15 SKUs, especially during the summertime, our peak season, to order those in layers. So we're trying to yin and yang from a sales perspective to say, hey, help a guy out. We're working for the same team. Order this in 7, order this in 10, to create operational efficiencies, which in turn mitigate out of stocks. It's ease of check-in. And there's a lot of other, like I said, intangible things that will come along with that.
I noticed traveling across the U.S. and engaging with hundreds of distributors now in the last 20, 23 years or so. You can often find that gap of like church and state, right? Sales and operations. Sounds like you all it sounds like you guys have done a pretty good job of tackling that, right? So improved accurate orders help that, right? But Absolutely. It sounds like there's quite a united front. And at the end of the day, when everybody's driven towards a common goal, success is imminent, right? So
we breed family. We breed family here, and at the end of the day, we got to help each other out. Because ultimately, that's going to drive the cases. That's going to drive the additional revenue. We've got a great team, and you know, we always continue to grow upon that. We got great people.
As I just mentioned, just engaged with tons of leadership across the country, and you all are best in class. And it's I mean, I have my heart and soul as part of every brand that I'm looking at as I look around here. I've sold them, I've thrown the cases, and so there's a soft spot here for me. Really appreciate your candidness, your honesty, your thoughts and what you shared today. I think we're just getting started. I think there's going to be a lot of things that we want to explore on the sales side as well, and figure out how we can break down some barriers and some walls. So thank you for the conversation today.
It, Sean.
Cheers.
Cheers, bud.
This has been Pallets to Pints. Hope you have a great day.